Lemon64 presents a Playguide and video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, once again to another Lemon C64 play guide and review. This week it gives me great pleasure to present Bionic Commando, developed by Software Creations and published by the Go label in 1988 on the Commodore 64. You can see a great title loading picture there, and Go. I always wondered what Go meant, but that is the publisher of this game, and Software Creations, as we shall find out later on, are famous for these types of arcade conversions. It is based on the Capcom original arcade machine, which appeared in 1987, and this was rumoured to be a sequel to Capcom's original Commando. From the title screen we gain an arcade style font, which is only just about readable, and you can hear a pretty dire rendition of some music. Let's press fire and let's check out this game and let's see how far we can get with it. In this game, our character is non-surprisingly a Bionic Commando, and we can use our bionic arm to get ourselves out of trouble, and we can also fire a pistol, and that should blow away these enemies on the level. And that thing floating down the screen there was supposed to speed up our grappling hook or our bionic arm, whatever you like to call that, and we must use that to navigate through a forest. And of course these enemies, if they land on our heads or if they fire in our direction, well, we'll die, and we can't even touch these mines either. So we have to stay out of trouble, and look at that, sometimes we can use the arm to keep the enemies at arm's length, but thanks to a great effect, when we die, we are invulnerable for a number of seconds, and that means we can continue. So let's take on these enemies, and let's try to navigate towards the top of this level, and there we shall find the exit. So along our travels, we can find gun upgrades, and this weedy pistol that we've got at the moment is only just barely enough. Those birds will fly around in a pattern, so if you can memorise those, it's not too bad. And look at that, an upgrade there, but unfortunately it's the same white gun that we've got at the moment, so that isn't much of an upgrade at all. Our score is pretty weedy as well. As we head on towards the exit, we haven't scored much points at all. But there you go, that's level 1 over, and look at that, directly at the end, if that guy had landed on our heads, we'd be dead right now. But instead we find the end of the level. Level 2 is a much more interesting level, and it does provide us with some weapons power-ups later on. You can see we are down to our last life at the moment, so we're going to have to either shoot or avoid all these enemies if we want to survive. Right from the go, we are given an opportunity to increase our lives. Sometimes these medals will provide us with an extra life, and that's great to pick that up. Further along down, we find a green gun, and that will give us extra firepower. It isn't amazing, but it makes sure that these guys can be knocked out with one shot. Those guys don't really aim on target, and it's very easy to avoid those, and as you can see, the score is reflected by that. Let's avoid another medal and carry on towards the top of the level, collecting the red gun as we do so, and if we time this perfectly, we didn't unfortunately, but if we do, we can then rise and ascend this level pretty quickly, and that takes us towards the top. And already we find, well, if we roll into those walls there, we'll get thrown back, and that's another one of those quirks. but I find the character of the Commodore 64 version is amazing, and it's the closest I find to the original arcade machine, which I have played and on the MAME emulators and things like that. So let's grab that red gun, and that takes down the final enemy, and while he flashes we can pass straight through him towards the end of level 2. On the tape version, it will load the third level after the second one, and that takes some time, of course. To begin, level 3 opens out pretty easily. To do is to destroy these gremlins, or whatever they may be. I always thought they looked like gremlins on the C64 version. You have to destroy those, and you may notice we still have that red gun. A leap of faith reveals that we are still alive, and we can time these maneuvers so that they can take on these enemies, but it's important to get the pattern, because if you fall off the wrong platform, we will die. On this section, we can gain the blue gun, but we must follow that down to the ground, otherwise that will hover in midair. And then we can use the arm to grab that, and now we have the blue gun. Unfortunately, we find a ninja guy down there, and before he has time to inflict much damage, we commit suicide. So this is us now finally on our last life, and this is practically as far as I've ever got with this game, because after this there is a huge beast on the arcade version, and it's very hard to get past that, and very hard to get beyond this stage, in fact, these falling platforms and things like that. So that's virtually as far as I've ever got with this particular game. And so let's enter our name on that high score table. And whilst we do so, we also notice a time limit there, and we also gain a great theme as well. So I actually quite enjoyed that. I thought that was quite fun. So if you want to see me playing that again, let's try that again. This time we'll try it again, and this time we will use a different setup. You can see the graphics are different there. It's a different wind vice system. So let's try a different route, and let's see if that is any easier. And yes, we can swing over these things, and we can avoid most things in this game. And this game was coded by Stephen Rudy, or Ruddy perhaps, and he was there with Software Creations right from the beginning with the Big KO, which appeared in 1987. He also moved on to Bubble Bobble in 1987, and he also coded Ghouls and Ghosts C64 and the Amiga in 1989, and we've gone to LED Storm as well in 1989, so great arcade conversions there. The graphics in this version were created by Andrew R. Threlfall, and he created the graphics for Bubble Bobble, LED Storm and Ghouls and Ghosts. Finally, this incredible music was crafted by Tim Folin, and he also created the great music to Psycho Pigs UXB in 1988, another great classic game, and moved on to Gauntlet 3 in 1991 on the C64, before moving on to the Amiga. Although we do have a time limit, it is possible to gain a number of lives and a higher score than this by this point, and 111 seconds remaining means we could have spent much more time on that level. But let's move on to the level 2, and comparing this to the arcade, this has got similar great music, and I think they really did do a great job on the music. It's got scrolling, which is novel, not the Amiga, not even the Atari ST had scrolling, and to have scrolling on this game would make perfect sense. and so the Amiga version was spoilt by its flick screen effect. I really do like the presentation, I really do like the colours, I really do like the very similar level layout to this and the arcade, which means the player can take a very similar pattern and even very similar shortcuts as well. Although sometimes we are at the random mercy of those enemies, because if one of those guys simply lands upon our heads at the wrong point, we'll die, and there's nothing we can do about it except to parachute back in, and we can manoeuvre that parachute left and right and land on platforms that we needed to get to. And if you do land on this one and hit the central block, not the one I'm on at the moment, yes, that central block, and you face to the right, then you won't get hit and you can traverse the level. If you're facing to the left, of course, you are at the mercy of those cannonballs, and ascending the level like that is pretty difficult. So let's try again, and let's time those things, which isn't hard, and make our way finally to the end of the level. And at this point we get the guns as well. So the playability on offer on the Commodore 64 version is so much better than the Spectrum and the Amiga and all the other conversions, and I really do appreciate the playability, and it's not very difficult to gain progress in this game. You can see we are given a bonus for completing the level and 100 credits for every 1 second remaining, and those are totaled up at the end. So gaining a great time at the end does give you a few thousand points, but unfortunately it's not amazing score-wise. I think there are 5 levels in this game. As I say, I've only managed to ever get to the 3rd level. This is it. Let's try again and let's see if that is possible. Level 3, the playability really does spike, and if you weren't prepared for that, then you will die. Moving on to the scores, C64 gave this 78%, Ace gave it 83%, Commodore Force gave it 86%, Zap gave Bionic Commando 90%, and the Games Machine gave this conversion 96% in August 1990, which gives it an 8.5 out of 10. And I'd say that's the best conversion of Bionic Commando on any system anywhere. But if you want to find out where the worst conversion is on any system, well, that was also released on the Commodore 64, and that is known as Bionic Commando, the US edition. So let's check that out. There is no music on the title screen, but we do gain a few options to turn music on and off in the game. We can change the number of players, and let's leave the difficulty on Novice. In the US edition of Bionic Commando, sometimes the arm comes out when you really wanted to fire something, and that is annoying. We can only climb in a vertical and not in a diagonal manner, and of course we can't always shoot those guys dead with one bullet. No, sometimes those bullets pass straight through. Those guys are ignorant, of course, just like the European version, but in this version it isn't always so easy. You can see in this conversion it looks like a very bad conversion of a ZX Spectrum game, or sometimes a very bad CPC conversion, but I think this is more like a ZX, and you can see it is possible to jump down from ropes, but look at that, some kind of umbrella there, a blue parachute has killed me. I don't know quite what that was, but we are now down on lives. You can see this game is a very, very poor graphically converted game, and we are absolutely blind to where we are going. I'm presuming that this is the right way to go, but this is very much bigger than the ordinary C64 version, and perhaps further away from the arcade original. So let's just continue, and yet again we can only climb vertically, and that is annoying because these enemies, if they fall on our heads, of course sometimes there is absolutely no way out. and sometimes we cannot climb our way out of trouble because the arm is simply not long enough to reach those platforms. So we have to go the short way, and even though I tried to use the arm on that platform there, it didn't materialize in time. I fell off and died. So this game is infuriating and annoying at every stage, and that's why it's got an average score of 2 out of 10. So if you want to see a really bad conversion on the Commodore C64, this is it. Look at this, we have found a pink gun. Wow, it means that we can now, unfortunately, not avoid shooting the arm out when we really wanted to fire that gun, but we can at least kill those things with one shot. Not that that's any consolation, because this maze is so huge we don't have a clue where we are going. So let's continue up in this incessant thing, and no, we can't reach. We'll have to do that the hard way, and again, if we fall off those platforms, sometimes the arm does not go out when we really needed it to. Luckily, we can maneuver the parachute just like the regular version, and I feel it's a shame that American users got this conversion because it's absolutely dire. So there you go, Bionic Commando, the best and one of the worst versions apart from the Amiga on the Commodore 64. Thank you and see you soon.